Hello, my name is Earthbound and welcome to one of my first of what are hopefully many movie reviews by me. Today's movie in particular just turned 19 years old. To those who have an emotional attachment to this movie, I suggest you click away now, since what I am about to say is not popular among the Pokemon fanbase. In my personal opinion, Pokemon the first movie is a very overrated film. I know that a lot of people saw this movie when they were kids and loved it, but just because it is nostalgic, it does not mean it is good. Anyway, let's not fucking stroke our dicks and just get to the review. When it comes to my issue with this movie, it comes down to two major problems. The first problem is the direction it took and the expectations that were subverted. Let's rewind to the anime so that you can know what I'm talking about. One thing the anime does in the first season is build up Giovanni as a villain that Ash Ketchum will eventually confront. First you only see parts of him, then you see his face, but most important of all, you get a sneak preview of his ace in the hole, Mewtwo. This badass armored Pokemon that makes Sabrina's Kadabra look like a Magikarp. When you watch the episode, you wonder how our heroes are going to stop Giovanni when he has something like that at his disposal. But in the first 5 or 10 minutes of the movie, Mewtwo turns on Giovanni, sheds the cool armor and flies away. Are you shitting me? You can't just scrap the arc you were already developing and reinvent the villain of Mewtwo. That's not how character development works. You should have had Mewtwo struggle with his loyalty to Giovanni and doing the right thing. That scene, where he flies away, lands on the island and drops the helmet, that scene should have been at the end of the movie, not the beginning. Now we have a whole movie where Mewtwo is doing the same shit Giovanni did, cloning Pokemon and being an asshole to everyone. They claim to make a movie, when in reality they treated it like making a long Pokemon episode. I'm going to explain why. What stakes are there in the movie? What's the big game changer that makes this different from any episode of the anime? Let me use some other movies based on TV shows to tell you what I am talking about. In Transformers the movie, Optimus Prime dies. In SpongeBob the movie, Plankton finally steals the secret formula. In the Kids Next Door TV movie, we learn there is a number 0 and his identity is not who we expect. But the biggest example of game-changing movies is Star Trek. In the Star Trek TV show, it was like a western in which there was a monster of the week and only a red shirt dies, but the movies are a lot different. In Star Trek 1, we see that Kirk is now an admiral. In Star Trek 2, we see Spock die. In Star Trek 3, the fucking Enterprise blows up. What happens in the Pokemon movie? Does Professor Oak die? Does Team Rocket finally succeed in stealing Pikachu? Does Ash finally become a Pokemon master? Of course fucking not. This might as well have been a Pokemon novel or comic. The story is not worthy of a motion picture. So the story isn't all there. At least the movie is exciting, isn't it? Of course not, and that leads to my second problem of the movie, the fact that there is no real tension to it. People like to praise Mewtwo as being a very complex villain, but in actuality he is one of the most boring villains in an animated film. Is it his motives? No. Is it the concept of him? No. It's the fact that he is too untouchable. Let me explain. In the movie, when the trainers try to attack him, none of their attacks get through. You may be thinking that of course they wouldn't. Mewtwo is a legendary Pokemon of his own tier, but that doesn't mean that the battle has to be completely one-sided. Let me go back to using other franchises as an example of this. I am going to show you scenes from Avengers Infinity War, The Empire Strikes Back and Dragon Ball Z Battle of the Gods.
Magic! More magic! Magic with a kick! Magic with a...
This shows that you can still have a high-tier villain, even if he's not invincible. In all of those fights there is actual weight to it that keeps the viewer excited. But all Mewtwo does in this movie is stand in one spot and troll everyone with his invincibility cheat. Now, before you say anything about that scene being used as a method to display Mewtwo's true power, let me retort. Aren't these supposed to be experienced Pokemon trainers? Why do they give up after one try? Why don't they team up or use actual tactics to bring Mewtwo down? That would make the battle more exciting and it would actually prove Mewtwo is more powerful in an even better way, since he was actually given a run for his money. But what about the 3v3 battle, you may be asking? Guess what? That sucks too. Unless you enjoy watching the anime equivalent of a Pokemon battle between a little kid and an EV trainer who has been playing since Gen 1, the only excitement I got was from watching the Charizard vs Charizard battle, but that's the point I'm trying to get across. All three battles should be exciting. What makes Ash Ketchum so special? He lost the league by default. Why not have a badass trainer who actually holds his own against Mewtwo and Ash can watch and say I want to be that guy when I am all grown up? Kind of like how Mega Man X views Zero, but instead of an interesting battle with twists and turns we basically get a Mary Sue villain, and I don't use that term lightly. Even when Mew shows up, it doesn't get that exciting. All they do is bounce around in force bubbles, while the Pokemon fight their clones, which could be interesting, but again, no tactics or strategy is used, they just wrestle like Showdown in Dark City. The trainers don't even intervene. They just stand there. You may think that a battle between Pokemon and their augmented clones would be somewhat interesting, but most of the clones are just copied and pasted versions of the originals. Maybe that's the point of the battle, but I would have liked to see an augment of Gyarados or Ninetales. It also doesn't help that Meowth has to translate for Mew, as he argues Mewtwo to his emotional side. That's basically the whole reason why Team Rocket is in the movie, and even though they have an emotional breakthrough, they go back to being the same assholes in the show. Why not have Jesse and James throw their uniforms away and live lives as honest trainers, while Butch and Cassidy take the reins of being the villains? Would the show really suffer if they did that? Anyway, the fact that Mew can speak makes the turning of Mewtwo less believable. If you want to have both an outer struggle and an inner struggle, it helps if both combatants can speak.
You say you answer to some sort of authority. They only want me dead because I'm an embarrassment. Because I do what they can't. What kind of authority is that?
It doesn't matter. It's their world and they won't stand for you anymore. If it isn't me, it'll just be someone else.
Really? Who do they send after you?
Now let me show you the same clip with Superman's dialogue edited out.
Because I do what they can't. What kind of authority is that? Who do they send after you?
See what I mean? I'm not saying every battle needs a dialectic, but when it is a conflict between two forces that represent different ideals, then it helps to have dialogue to show their different points of view. I'm not saying you should say all that much or talk in that squeaky voice, but they could have gotten a voice actress to record a few lines and have Mew telepathically convey said lines that basically state Mew's argument on a level children can understand, which isn't really that provocative, if you think about it. Of course, the circumstances of your birth don't matter. The only time it ever did in fiction was in the Shakespeare play Macbeth. Of course, it's what you do with the life that is given to you. Isn't that what Mewtwo was already doing? What was his endgame anyway? What was he hoping to accomplish by proving to people that clones are better than originals? Was he planning to kill all humans? Was he planning to rule the earth with an army of replicants? Was he using the Pokemon as guinea pigs so he could devise a method to make another of himself that would surpass him? It's never explained. From what I can tell, his whole evil plan was to lure trainers to his island to show off his collection of reskins. Now you may be asking me, okay smartass, how would you make the movie? Well, I don't want to delve too deeply into that, but here's a tidbit of a fanfiction rewrite that I pulled out of my ass. The movie starts out the same way, with Ash battling the trainer with the Machamp and the Golem, but instead of winning he loses. He then realizes that he has gotten rusty from losing the Pokemon League and goes to Professor Oak for guidance, but when he calls him up the lab falls under attack and Ash races back to Pallet Town. When he gets there he finds Professor Oak dying under a fallen beam and Oak tells Ash that the Pikachu he gave him in the beginning contains a special genotype that Team Rocket wanted, and that is why Ash's particular Pikachu is so powerful. Jesse and James overhear this and figure out that the Pikachu that they were chasing was actually one the organization that employed them wanted from Oak. So Team Rocket, knowing that they will be rewarded handsomely, they stop playing the cat and mouse game and draw a foolproof plan to steal and detain Pikachu. Team Rocket succeeds and delivers Pikachu to Giovanni. Giovanni thanks Jesse and James for the Pikachu and then dismisses them, not even giving them a pat on the back. Meanwhile, Ash is now thrown into a serious situation, where his Pikachu is now in the hands of his enemies and his mentor is dead. Then James and Mia, with knowing their criminal careers, are at a dead-end defect from Team Rocket and tell Ash where Pikachu is being held and what Giovanni is planning. Ash learns that Giovanni plans to take over the Kanto region with an army of augments, so in a nutshell what Mewtwo did in the movie we got but on a more massive scale. So now Ash, Misty, Brock, James, Meowth and Mr. Mime, because why not, go all over the Kanto region, reuniting with trainers they met on their journey and rallying them into a fighting force to challenge Giovanni and Mewtwo. So they all attack Giovanni's headquarters in Celadon City and Ash rescues Pikachu. The trainers all chase Giovanni, until they have him cornered and then Giovanni reveals Mewtwo. At first the battle is one-sided, but as I suggested, the trainers huddle up and try a different plan of attack that involves things like combining attacks, flanking him and overwhelming him with numbers. At first it starts to work but then Mewtwo gains the upper hand and overpowers them. All seems lost and then Mew shows up and now the climax of Act 3 begins, where we have Mewtwo vs Mew, Ash vs Giovanni and James and Meowth vs Jesse. And one cool thing Mew could do to mess with Mewtwo's head is transform into him, since he knows transform in the games. Meanwhile Ash and a few other trainers who are not busy fighting Team Rocket goons manage to overpower Giovanni and corner him. Giovanni commands Mewtwo to help him but instead Mewtwo does what he did in the beginning of the movie we got, where he blows everything up, sheds his armor and flies away, only this time Mew goes with him. Giovanni is turned over to the authorities to stand trial. Jesse, James and Meowth walk away to start a new life and Ash looks onward wondering what will become of Mewtwo and Mew. Is it perfect? Of course not, but it feels more like a movie, doesn't it? I don't know. All in all, is the movie we got really that bad of a movie? Of course not. It's not even that bad of a Pokemon movie. I just don't think it's the best and I certainly don't think it's the worst. To me it's just a meta film and I understand that it means something to people. I just wanted to say my piece. I might review more movies in the future but right now I have other videos to make. Keep it real.